Police have identified the two people killed in a passenger train derailment north of Melbourne overnight, which also injured a dozen people. 12 others were taken to hospital.
5 carriages from the Sydney to Melbourne XPT service came off the tracks near Wallen, north of Melbourne, just before 8 o'clock local time. Witnesses have described luggage and bodies being tossed around inside the train. Rail services on the line are suspended indefinitely, and state and federal authorities are promising a full investigation. With the latest, reporter Steph Ferrier joins us from Wallen. Steph, they've got a lot to get through to work out just what went on here.
Absolutely they do, and police have just confirmed that the two who were killed was a 54-year-old driver from the ACT, he was the train driver, as well as the 49-year-old train pilot, and she was from Castlemaine in Victoria. So they have released those details. Earlier on they had said that they were still yet to formally identify that second railway worker, the train pilot, but obviously now they will be trying to make sure that they give all due respect and accord them. We understand that they are removing those bodies. There will be a report that will be prepared for the coroner. And as you mentioned, there was one person who was taken to the Royal Melbourne Hospital with upper body injuries and another 11 people hospitalised with minor injuries as a result of this horrific derailment. But as of course we've heard from passengers, some say that they were just holding on for grim death. They basically were feeling as if the carriage was going sideways for some 150 metres before finally grinding to a halt. Others were talking about bodies and baggage being thrown around the carriages and the panic and rush as people were lying around and they were just having to check on them in the carriage to make sure that nobody was seriously injured or had been killed in that. And of course we have heard from the police, from Acting Inspector Peter Fusitano. He says that it really was a miracle that, given that the scenes of this derailment and the horrific nature of it, and notwithstanding those two deaths, that more people didn't die in this event. Let's have a quick listen to what he had to say.
I would imagine as a first responder who turned up, it would have been looking like an horrific scene. But again, the outcome, which obviously it's unfortunate we've lost 2 lives, but with 153 passengers, the outcome was probably far greater than what you would have anticipated when you first turned up.
Steph, we've seen on social media some people suggesting the train had been going quite slow. It was already delayed a couple of hours. It had been due to get into Melbourne well before when the accident actually happened, just before 8 o'clock last night. But are there any indications as to what has caused this accident?
Well, the inspector says that obviously they're still working through those all that information, and they really don't know what's caused this derailment yet. We're expecting the Australian Transport Safety Bureau officers down here to investigate. There'll also be the rail regulators. There was a question asked as to whether or not there'd been a fire in a signal box in recent days and whether or not signalling issues could have caused this derailment. The police said that they didn't have any information on that or any comments to make on that. Also no comments to make on the suggestion that the train might have been trying to make up time after, as you say, had been delayed, and whether or not the driver had been on the PA system making an announcement to passengers when this derailment happened. Obviously all these factors will be taken into account by investigators. We have seen that on this part of the track in the past, in recent times, there have been disruptions caused by rail issues, and that has affected services in the past, and some people have taken to social media saying why weren't some of these services suspended before a derailment like this happened. But obviously there will be a full and thorough investigation. We've had a statement that's been given by the federal Transport Minister and as well as the New South Wales and Victorian Transport Ministers promising that this investigation will leave no stone unturned. So I'm sure that that's what they'll be now looking at. And of course, for the foreseeable future, the services will be cancelled down here. The police did say it's going to take quite some heavy haulage to get that train off the tracks. And also, of course, there's been quite significant track damage as well here.
And Steph, what about passengers who were planning on using that rail service over the next few days?
Yes, so the people who are down here, I'm looking at quite a few people just nearby who are obviously queuing for replacement bus services. So they will continue in the interim to try and ferry people. And it's something that obviously a lot of people all the way up this track will be looking at very closely. In fact, we heard from further up near Albury-Wodonga, near the border, that they had a derailment happen just late last month. So it's certainly an issue that's at the forefront of a lot of people's minds here. And police are also asking people, up to 20 people on this particular train, more than a dozen people who apparently did disappear really quickly, to make sure that they get in contact with police, and also people who might have booked a ticket but didn't get on that train, just to get in touch with police so that they can mark themselves off and make sure that they can account for those people as well.
Steph, thanks for bringing us up to date with all of that.
In the latest development, police have confirmed the two killed were the male driver and the female train pilot.
And we'll have more on that in a moment, but first, those on board have described the chaos.
We're flying, and the next minute, everything went swaying, and we were big, like the brakes and carriages were going everywhere.
It was an absolute nightmare. I will never, ever use our rail network again. And we were probably doing 80 or 90 k's an hour. Next thing, we were thrown out of our seats. The whole train derailed. Bits of track and sleepers going everywhere. The entire train, with the exception of the rear locomotive, was totally derailed.
Well, we were just going along at speed, and then all of a sudden the train started to sway and move, and came to a grinding halt off the rails, and it was then just a bit of pandemonium on board. People were, injured and upset, and it was just a crazy scene.
Now, for more on the condition of the injured passengers, our reporter James Hancock joins us from the Royal Melbourne Hospital. James, what can you tell us?
Well, Lisa, one man remains in a stable condition here at the Royal Melbourne Hospital this morning. He's aged in his 60s and has an upper body injury. 11 other people suffered minor injuries in the crash. 8 were taken to the Northern Hospital and 3 were taken to Kilmore Hospital. Police say they're very surprised that no one else was injured in the derailment. But the latest from police is that they've confirmed the identities of the 2 people who were killed in the crash: the train driver, a 54-year-old man from the ACT, and the train pilot, a 49-year-old woman from Castlemaine. Now, many people were able to walk away from last night's derailment. Some ended up at a nearby service station, which was turned into a makeshift triage site for those passengers. Of course, 12 people were injured in this crash, 11 of them suffering minor injuries, and they are being treated in hospital this morning. But the worst of the injured, that man aged in his 60s with an upper body injury. Thankfully, he's in a stable condition here at the Royal Melbourne Hospital.
James, we were just hearing some words from some of the passengers about the uncertainty and the chaos and the luggage being tossed around. It would have been quite terrifying for them.
It certainly would have been terrifying, Lisa, and authorities today are trying to get to the bottom of exactly how the derailment happened about 8 o'clock last night near Wallen, which is about 60 kilometres north of Melbourne. Victoria Police is working with federal transport regulators. The initial investigation into the cause of the crash, we're told, will take days, and that section of train line will remain closed while that work is carried out. Now, V-Line says that services aren't running on that line, understandably, today. They are a number of services on that line in Victoria. We're talking about the Shepparton, Seymour and also Albury services, and V-Line says that coaches are replacing trains, but really a minor inconvenience for passengers, train passengers in Victoria, considering what those people went through about 8 o'clock last night. One carriage left on a severe angle and the other carriage left on its side after this derailment. But exactly how it occurred, we don't know yet.